how many downloads of Jim and Bill It's Another Day podcast?
Today, the podcast show has fetched 400 million downloads since its start, and an average of 350,000 downloads per episode, about 3.9 million downloads per week.
Well, hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight with my cup of right side coffee in hand, so I am ready to rock and roll, so to speak.
It was a multi-cup weekend. I got to tell you, with all the stuff going on, it's amazing. I had my right side coffee, which, if you haven't tried it, by the way, folks, and you're wondering where to find it, it's a very simple answer. All you have to do is go to rightsideshop.com, rightsideshop.com. That's our internet storefront. And you'll see some other stuff there, hats and cups and sweatshirts and T-shirts. All, as Bill would say, swag. I love that term, swag. I think you've invented a new term, Bill, by the way. I think
swag.
Swag.
It's an old term I've used a long time ago, and I don't want to go into the story.
No, but it's not.
But it's funny.
But it's not swag. It's swag.
It's
which
swag,
has a certain je ne sais quoi to it, you know?
Yes. It has pizzazz.
It does.
Because it's swag. It's not swag. You can get swag anywhere, but
yes,
we're the
right.
only place to get swag.
I like it. And you'll also get Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. It's a medium blend roast and a medium decaf roast, and it's full of flavor. You'll love it. The finest coffee beans went into putting this coffee together, and it's available to you anytime you want it. Just go to that website. We take all the major credit cards. Just order yourself up a package of Right Side Coffee, and just like that, it'll be there. It'll be at your door. So, I think you'll agree. It's well worth the wait and a great cup of coffee. And, of course, we're the only company that has Juan, Jose, and the Border Crossers straight from God knows where, who I have no idea. When the show ends, I don't even know where they go, Bill. They pick up their stuff and leave the studio. I have no idea where they go, but they're always here the next day, ready to sing.
Let's hear the guys.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
They're so good. Juan, Jose, and the Border Crossers singing about Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. It's delicious. Give yourself a break. Buy yourself some Right Side Coffee. You'll love it. Have you been following the fires in Los Angeles? I mean, how could you not? It was everywhere.
There's so many things to pick apart on that thing. Well, let's start at the top of the list and the hypocrisy of the left. Well, I don't want to be political, but the rich have got to chip in their fair share, quote unquote, Maxine Waters.
Yeah, I know. She is literally the lady is. And I hate to say this, has nothing to do with race. I say this up front. But this lady is as dumb as a box of rocks. But the thing is, she's also in Congress, which makes her terribly dangerous. You know?
And don't insult boxes of rocks, because
that's true.
They, like you said, actually, they have more intelligence than she does.
Yeah.
At least they know their place.
That's true. She is really, and I think she's been in Congress like forever. I think that, seriously, they were putting the keystone into the Capitol building, and I think Maxine was there. She's that old.
She found the rock that they.
And then this Senator Ed Markey, he's blaming Trump for the problem. Mind you, Trump has been a private citizen for 4 years, and yet Markey from Massachusetts, who another guy, he's been 20 years in Congress and another 10 years as a senator. This guy just won't go away. He's never had his own job. You know, the guy is he's another doofus. You know, he's a guy who just won't leave. He just won't. He'll just keep taking that public paycheck. You know.
Well, usually the problem lies in right at the lap of the person pointing the finger.
Yeah.
Everybody that's finger pointing out there, and Trump, they'll say Trump's finger pointing.
Well, listen, Mark.
Well, the only difference is he's not out there. He has nothing to do with it, and he sat there and pointed out the simple fact that, well, you haven't sat there and raked up the forest to get all the shrubbery out. You don't have the plumbing, the water system. Your reservoirs empty, and the water that you have sufficiently enough, well, you pump it out to sea.
Yeah. And Markey said This is the senator from Massachusetts. Okay, Trump has been bought for $1 billion by big oil, just a payoff to kill the IRA and Green New Deal. We know what will happen: more fires, more climate disasters, more death. The LA fires are a preview of coming atrocities. This is Ed Markey. This guy, someone should grab him by the scruff of the collar and drag him out of Congress. You know?
Well, listening to what he's saying, I take it differently. He's threatening to do all those things.
Yeah.
We don't like Trump, so get ready for more fires and anarchy and everything.
Well, what do you think is going to happen over the next 4 years? They're going to go
worried
after
about what's going to happen in the next 10 days.
Well, that's why I hope to God this is a different Trump than the first time around. I'll tell you, in one aspect. In the first term, he was much more conciliatory and trying to mend fences and be. I hope this time around he doesn't take any nonsense from any of these morons. And I think, in all honesty, I hope he doesn't have a campaign to run for. He's done after this term. So I hope this gives him a freedom he didn't have in the first term in office.
Well, it does. He's not a lame duck. He's if he's a duck, he's a PO duck, and he's in to fix it, and that's it. So, but we've got liberal problems all the way around in Canada. They're looking for a new prime minister. I forget the guy's name. One of the guys, though, he wears the Muslim turban thing, but he's sitting there and he's a radical lefty. He's going, Canadians are proud of their country. Okay, I agree with that.
Yeah.
And they're ready to fight tooth and nail for it. Okay, he's threatening, if he's prime minister,
that would be a phenomenal mistake on the part of our Canadian
Don't threaten
friends.
war, because I'm sorry, Canadian people do love their country. And there's a lot of nice things there, but you know what? You're going to be a stain in your underwear.
We'll send in the Maine National Guard and take care of it. No, I mean, in all honesty, they threaten. If you're going to injure us with tariffs, we're going to stop giving you they go on. They're such a small part of our economy. People don't realize how small their contribution to our economy is.
Yeah, come on.
We're a massive part of their economy.
In Canada,
we're a massive part of their economy, Bill. They also are in a situation where they need us for defense. Yes, they have a nice army and they do their best, but truly, if there's a problem and Canada's in the line of fire, they're not going to be able to do it by themselves. They're going to need us to come to their aid. It's just the way it is.
Oh yeah, well, you had another lefty up there going, yeah, you know what? We're not going to be your state, but we'll gladly take Washington, Oregon, and California. And I'm like going,
yeah. You gotta love these people.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. Getting back to the fires over the weekend, and we talked about it for a little bit last week. I think these fires are not like all in just one area. They pop up. They're like miles apart.
Pop-up fires.
Yeah, they're popping up all over the place. And now they're finding that there are, my God, arsonists involved. Now,
of foreign descent, even.
I want to play. This is a cut from. Well, you'll hear it. Listen.
What we know right now is that the incident started here, and about 30 minutes later, a suspect was detained over in Woodland Hills area by citizens.
So someone purposely set the Kenneth fire?
At this time, that's what we believe, yes.
Do you know how or why they did that?
That I don't know.
Is this a crime scene right now?
Yes.
So everything's closed off?
It's being investigated as a crime.
Now, like an hour or two after that interview, the police came out and had a press conference and said this.
But they responded. They interviewed this suspect. After the interview and additional investigative steps, looking at some additional evidence that was present, they made the determination that there was not enough probable cause to arrest this person on arson or suspicion of arson, and therefore this person was arrested on a felony probation violation. This investigation is ongoing, however, and I'd like to thank those community members that were involved in this and helping us bring this person to our attention, and so we can have an ongoing investigation.
Okay, so
second point I want to talk.
So they didn't charge him, right? They're holding him on a probation violation. But I want to play for you a cut from somebody who was watching the guy that they're talking about and the one that they arrested. This is an eyewitness watching him and some other people.
We're at 302 Pico, and people are lighting fires now. You can see they lit a fire. These guys, not all the people there, but some of those guys lit that fire, and these guys they're actually, the trees caught fire, and then the palms are catching fire. So civilians are now lighting fires down in the so-called, flats around Santa Monica, Venice. So be safe out there. Fire department's been dispatched. We don't have enough water to put this thing out. We're supposedly on the way.
Is it citizens that are setting fires, or are we under a terrorist attack? We talked about this last week.
Bill, that's exactly where we were going with this. They say that the LAPD didn't arrest this guy. LAPD didn't arrest this guy because he was illegal.
So he's not a citizen. And you got to wonder, though, with the powers that be, Gavin Newsom sitting there going, well, we were hearing $36 billion to rebuild. Now it's topping over $150 billion. Oh, more is going to burn, as if he knows something. And I'm starting to wonder, California's had some money problems. But when FEMA kicks in and federal money kicks in, like the $150 billion, it's over the next 10 years. You give any state an infusion of $150 billion over 10 years to rebuild, they're going to have jobs, a great economy, at the behest of the rest of us that pay for it. But they're going to be good. We talked about that. That happened down in Florida with, I think it was Frederick, the hurricane down there, whatever it was. It wiped things out. It was probably before Frederick, or after Frederick. But either way, it devastated everything, but construction money and everything that came in. If you owned a store, well, these guys got to eat, so they'd buy groceries. They'd go buy, food. They need cars, so they bought cars. They need furniture. They bought furniture.
You know what FEMA stands for, right?
Here we go.
It stands for funneling emergency money to aliens.
Yeah.
Somebody sent me this. Somebody sent me this over the weekend. I thought that was funny. Funneling emergency money to aliens.
California has they've always had a problem with the fires. Now, if there's anything that they could do is say, okay, Gavin's talking about LA 2.0. Here's a suggestion. Back when LA was first put together, we really didn't know a lot about climate and the winds and fires and brush fires. And apparently you still don't, because you don't clean up the shrubbery. But now with 2.0, maybe like other parts of California, there was, Fresno, where I'm from. Mm-hmm. Old Fresno was in a different place. They moved the city, not a couple of miles. I mean, you're talking about, 30 miles or so.
Yeah.
Maybe they do that. There was talk of New Orleans doing that one time when they had the hurricane because the oceans closed in. Maybe it's time to back her up a little bit,
I don't know how this area that's burned out is going to take 20 years for it to look like something again, because it's like right to the dirt. All the stuff is gone.
Yeah, it's almost like a bomb went off or like a volcano blew. Remember Mount St. Helen?
Yeah.
And you still see some of the devastation.
Yes.
Things grow back. Mother Earth will re-cleanse herself in, a volcano, a fire, do something like that. And maybe Mother Earth, sat there and said, okay, you're setting the fires. Let's go ahead and cleanse this land and right down to the ground. Start from scratch.
Well, they've got to, and by the way, somebody said, and it's so true, Trump will have the money for California, but he's not going to hand it over with no strings attached this time around. That day is done. They're going to probably say, you're going to get the money, but here's what you have to do. You have to implement a program to thin out the underbrush, that growth. They used to have a much better plan in place in California where they got rid of the underbrush. The underbrush is a problem, folks. The underbrush is like kindling to a fire. You get a little spark in the underbrush, the undergrowth, and bang, you get what you had. And then it spreads easily because it's like having newspaper spread out underneath all these trees, and all that newspaper catches fire, and next thing you know, the trees are gone. That's the problem we have with California right now. And they did it because they wanted to be green. They wanted to be politically correct. And what President Trump was talking about is that they have all this water up north that they used to channel down to the south. But when Newsom got into office, he diverted this water, like Bill said, out into the Pacific.
Yeah.
And so now Trump is going to, I swear, Bill, he's going to say, look, you're going to have to meet some markers here to get this money because we're not going to just hand you this money so you politicians can divert it to some Green New Deal and the people don't get the benefit. And that's the problem with Newsom. Everything he's done has he's benefited the smelt, the endangered smelt fish. In the meantime, 20-some people have died in this fire, and they're still counting. Yeah, and they're still counting, Bill.
Oh, there's bodies out there that we don't even know about.
Yep.
And we'll find out about it. How bad it is, I don't know. But I believed when it first started, you know what? One big fire, okay, it's the norm. They got to do something about it. 2, a little bit beyond the norm. 3, okay, we're out of the norm. 4, 5, 6. Now somebody's walking around setting these fires, and it just seems that these fires, taking advantage of the winds, are wiping out complete, communities, neighborhoods,
Bill,
little small towns.
They have, if they're worried about the smelt, and it's, I guess, a little fish, send some of your naturalists out there and capture some of these fish and put them in breeding farms like you do with some of the other fish, like trout, and then they'll have fun and they have their little orgies, and before you know it, there'll be lots of smelt or whatever we want to call them, and then you put them back in the streams. All right, but what they want to do is let them live in their natural environment and let them
if their natural
procreate on their
catches
own.
On fire, I guess it's God's will.
Well, the problem is that in the meantime, our citizens are dying because of their stupidity. And by the way, I'm sorry. I've heard this. You probably heard this expression. I think I don't know whether it was Michael Savage who said liberalism is a mental disorder, and I truly think that's the case. Because everything is touchy-feely. Oh, I feel so much better when we're doing a green thing, Oh, cut it out. For Pete's sakes, California's greatness grew on the backs of hardworking Americans, hardworking Californians.
But liberal politicians, and there are conservatives that way, but a fine example, not trying to get off topic, but in New York, they've got that new tax for you to sit there and it's to clear congestion. Well, you know what? Maybe you need to think about how you route traffic in your roads and that system. But a former New York State senator lecturing the residents, oh, yeah, get over it. That is I'm going to charge you more money. Get over
I don't know
it.
how
I'm
much
the politician. I'm in charge.
I don't know how much it costs to park in New York City right now in a parking garage. When I worked there in the late 70s, mind you, it was the late 70s that I was working there. Parking my car in a garage would cost me like between $8 and $12 for the day. That was a lot of money. I would imagine right now it's more like $30, $40 to park your car all day long. Now they want to add another $9 just for driving your car into work in their city. Everything you do when you're working in the city benefits the city. If you go out to have lunch, you're eating, you're buying stuff from the local restaurants. There's taxes there. The city's benefiting by you just working in that city. These are stupid people.
Yeah, they are. But, I've always had problems. I mean, it's like toll roads. It's to pay for the road, but then the road's paid for and you're still paying the toll, which I'm sitting there going, it's just.
And they're still, they'll say, well, we left the toll booths up because we have to maintain the road. But then they don't really maintain the roads. A lot of the.
Yeah, you know what? If you pay a toll, it's a private road, right?
Right.
Okay, so how do the
you would
have the
think
authority to issue tickets on a private road?
Yeah, you would think it's a private road, but they're really
It's
not.
not.
They're not. What is it? There's a name for it. There's a name for the division that runs the tolls on the in Pennsylvania. Anyway, but anyway, I wanted to get back to Justine Bateman. She was interviewed. She lives in California in that area. A lot of celebrities have lost their homes. And off the top of my head, I saw a list of famous homes that have been destroyed because of the McNally in Rand McNally. The Atlases, Rand McNally Atlases. McNally House, I think it was built like in 1875 or something like that, burned to the ground, gone. It's disappeared. There are other famous houses, homes that were once owned by famous directors. The Zane Grey house, the author, Zane Grey westerns and things like that. His house burned to the ground, gone. Mel Gibson's house totally gone. I think he's a great guy. I like Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
I don't know him, but I always liked his movies. I always liked his attitude. And when the announcement of the fire happened, he was being interviewed by Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan, I guess, asked him about it, and his attitude was, "Well, there's nothing I really can do about it now. I'm here, and it's sort of like God's will be done." As it was, he got back to L.A., and his place was completely destroyed. He lost everything. But his attitude, I saw him interviewed on Laura Ingraham, his attitude is, it's just stuff. It's just stuff, and we have our health, and we'll be, fortunately, he's got the wherewithal to either rebuild or build somewhere else, Although I look at some of those sites, some of those lots, and they just sit on the side of the hill overlooking the Pacific. It's got to be, when that place was in its prime, it must have been a gorgeous place to live in. These people didn't move to rowdy neighborhoods. These were nice neighborhoods that went up, which is another reason why you wonder whether it was intentionally lit. Was it lit by somebody to pay back the rich in California? Anyway, Mel Gibson was he was being interviewed by Joe Rogan. He was talking about, and I want to play this because I thought it was interesting. He was talking about the Pope. Mel Gibson is a devout fundamentalist Catholic, meaning he believes in the basics of Catholicism, and is so much so that he even kind of likes the old-fashioned Mass. For those of you who don't know, up until 1963, when Pope John Paul the 23rd changed so that it could be English, the Mass was done in Latin, which was, for a lot of Catholics, it was you'd go to Mass and you didn't know what they were saying on the altar, and you never knew what they were saying, but there was something about the tradition itself. You felt like you were looking at something historic when you were watching it in Mass, okay? And but Pope John Paul the 23rd wanted to open up and make it more available to the people, what was being said. So he allowed people to do the Mass in their own languages. So in the U.S., since like the early 60s, it's been in English. And it's very much like the Episcopalian service or the Lutheran service, the way they do their services. But this Pope that we have right now, and you probably heard us talk about it before, he's not really standing true to the tenets of the faith. I was brought up my whole life believing certain rock-solid, markers. You had to do this, you had to do that. You couldn't. When I was a kid, you couldn't eat meat on Friday, right? Which is So, anyway, Mel Gibson, who I think he even bought a church once and made it a Latin church. You still can have Mass in Latin. He made this church a Latin Mass church and gave it to the diocese, and I don't know what happened after that point, but
They probably sold it.
they probably, yeah, probably. But anyway, he was talking about this Pope, and listen to what he says, and please excuse the music in the background. These people who find these clips, they do this all the time. They put music behind clips music shouldn't always be behind everything. But anyway, listen to what Mel Gibson says.
I mean, we got a pope that brought a South American idol into the church to worship.
Really?
He did. The Pachamama. He brought the South American, and he got.
I don't know what that is.
It's kind of like a South American god, Pachamama.
Why would he do that?
Good question. But he did.
Did he have an explanation for why he did it?
Yeah, it's kind of a weasel-worded thing of like, oh, all religions are just as good as one another. But, if that's his contention...
He shouldn't be the Pope.
No. I mean,
how can you be the Pope if say all religions are just as good?
Yeah, we all worship, So, yeah, that's the Pachamama. There you go.
So he brought that in?
Yeah, into the Vatican. Then the hierarchy even worshipped. They had a ceremony around it outside.
What?
So, well, that constitutes apostasy.
Yeah.
That's an apostasy.
Yeah.
All right.
Worshiping false gods.
Yeah. That's number one on the Mosaic hit list.
Yeah.
Moses goes up on the mountain. He comes back down. People are worshiping a golden calf.
Yeah.
It's that.
Yeah.
So you can't do that. And for me, that's a departure from... that's called apostasy.
Right.
That's a falling away from it. And the very nature of apostasy means that you have to be part of it to fall away from it. Mm-hmm. So it's an inside job.
So it's an inside job. I like that.
Yeah.
It's interesting, Bill. The Pachamama is usually depicted as a old woman, and I guess she helps bring fertility to the farms and stuff like that. But it would be as if in a Christian church you brought in a golden calf or an idol, right? That has nothing to do with Christianity, and you start praying to it. And that's what this Pope did. This Pope violated a basic tenet of the faith by bringing that into the church and then making his other bishops and stuff who were with him pray to it. And by the way, I don't know how the hell they did it. I mean, someone should have said, "I'm sorry, Your Holiness, but that is," and as Mel Gibson just said, an apostasy. I have the definition here, by the way. An act of refusing to continue to follow, obey, or recognize a religious faith. Abandonment of a previous loyalty, a defection, apostasy. This is from Merriam-Webster Dictionary. You can find it for yourself if you don't believe me. And that's what this guy did. Yet he's the leader of one of the largest faiths in the world. He has done so many things, Bill, that go against the religion that we could do a whole show on it, and I'm not going to. But I wanted to play that before I forgot that there's a lot of other things happening that are awfully strange in this world.
Mm-hmm.
Awfully strange.
Now, religion over time has been, what's the word? It's. I don't want to use the word evolved because that means it's gone through
watered down,
process.
Bill.
Watered down, interpreted. Because people they go to church and they go, well, I really don't feel good about that in the Bible.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether you feel good about it or not. That's what's there.
Yes.
So they change it.
Yes.
They change it to suit their standards. And then they rewrite that Bible, like King James.
Yeah.
And then we, down the road, sit there and go, well, it's in the Bible. Well, the Bible has been tainted by man.
Everybody interprets it. We interpret the Bible.
I don't care about your interpretation. What does it really say?
And Bill, my whole life, Catholicism, and I point to Catholicism, but it gets a bad rap. You have to remember something, folks, that it was the first Christian faith. The Protestant Reformation came as a result of people protesting against Catholicism, because, and justifiably so, in my opinion, because at the time they had these revolutions, you had a corrupt Vatican, which is kind of what we have right now. You know, you had these there was a time back in the mid 1300s and stuff when you had what they call papal royalty, where popes were having wives and they were having children, and you're not supposed to have that. There's something called celibacy in the Catholic Church. I don't mean to go into a long dissertation, but the point is, this guy that we have right now is a result of, he's bringing back all this touchy-feely nonsense. You know, every religion is good, and we should all pray to every religion. No, you moron. Catholicism had rock foundations that you had to stand by. You couldn't move anything. It was like, this is how the faith is, and you have to believe it, or you're not in the faith. That's it. That's why, by the way, that's why they had Protestant religions formed, because they wouldn't allow people to interpret. They were doing some things that were very wrong, by the way, in Rome, but the leaders of the church wouldn't allow the people to protest it. They would, back then it was heresy. They'd burn them at the stake.
You go to a bookstore, a Baptist bookstore, a Catholic bookstore, any religious bookstore, even Walmart where they have Bibles. Well, they have the so-and-so interpretation of the Bible. Then they have somebody else's interpretation of the Bible. The New Testament. You know, there's so many interpretations, and I get somebody's argument that, well, you know, this is what that verse means to me. Now, the one thing I will tell you, if you decide to ever read the Bible, somebody will sit there and say, you know, they'll quote one scripture, and I'm going, one verse, and I'm going like, you know, you might want to take that whole chapter, start at the beginning all the way down to that verse, and read beyond it, because all of a sudden you get a whole new, complete meaning.
That's true. That's
it's not just one verse.
Well,
I'm not a biblical scholar by any stretch of the imagination, but I did grow up in the church, you know, and I won't even tell you how I had to learn scripture, because I was a kid, and so, you know, I got bribed.
I wanted to play something I thought was interesting, if I can find it. In my stack of stuff, I got so much stuff here. Mike Waltz is the Trump incoming national security advisor. He was on This Week on ABC with John Karl, another anti-Trumper from way back, and he was talking about things like American hostages and things like that. And, well, I'll let Carl ask the question and listen to his surprise at the response. Almost, he was incredulous. I can't believe this. You know?
Of course, President Trump made some serious waves this week when he didn't rule out the possibility of using military force to take over the Panama Canal and Greenland. Is he serious about that? Is that really an option?
Well, look, what he's very serious about is the threats that we're facing in the Arctic, the threats that we're facing in the Western Hemisphere. And don't just take that from him or me. The general in charge of our Southern Command, Laura Richardson, testified last year about Chinese state-owned enterprises bidding and buying up portions of the canal, the ports on either side, Huawei, the Chinese technology firm, dominating the free trade zone in their telecommunications, with 70% of global of U.S. shipping flowing through the Panama Canal, with our oil and gas exports flowing from the Gulf through there, with it critical for our military. There are elements for the U.S. to come in and defend its critical assets in the Panama Canal, in the Panama Canal Treaty, in the Neutrality Treaty. And for Greenland, there's precedent there as well with the 1951 defense agreement that we entered. And look, to our great friends and allies in Denmark, they literally have a couple of dog sled teams, Jonathan, up in Greenland. And when we're seeing Russia with 60 icebreakers, when we're seeing huge critical mineral, oil and gas, new shipping lanes being open with the retreating of the polar ice cap, enough is enough of having our adversaries coming into our Western Hemisphere, threaten our national security. And President Trump is ready to take big, bold steps to ensure the United States is well defended.
Okay, we're really out of time, but just let me underline. So are you saying that I understand the goals, that's a diplomatic goal, or are you talking about using military force to achieve those goals?
Well, look, President Trump is always going to leave all options on the table, but there are a number of things we can enter into to amend those existing agreements. We're hearing from the Greenlanders that they are pushing towards independence, which would allow all types of other avenues. But President Trump's never going to take an option off the table, unlike, frankly, his predecessor. So when it comes to our national defense, that is paramount to the commander-in-chief.
Mike Waltz, the incoming national security advisor to President Trump. Right. Jonathan Karl is just incredulous. Oh, I mean, they'd actually use military force. What this guy doesn't realize is that there's a northern route above Greenland that is opening up for trade, believe it or not, because I guess the waters are a little warmer or something, whatever, or the ships are built differently. They can go in that area now where they couldn't go before. But the point is, it's becoming more valuable. And also there are things like rare earth minerals on Greenland that we can use. And we don't want China to get, because China has enough of its own stuff, and they don't need to be in our backyard. And right now, China is in our backyard. They're down in the Panama Canal. They're in Mexico. And this is what Trump has got. He wants to discourage this. And I think his saying to Panama, look, we're taking that canal back whether you like it or not. It's ours. We built it. You as a country wouldn't exist if we didn't build that canal, and we didn't give you our military support. Do you know their money bill in Panama is printed in the United States, in our Treasury. Our Treasury prints their money. They sound indignant. We are an independent nation. No.
No, when Carter gave it back to them, there were stipulations on it.
Yes, there were, Bill. Exactly.
And that's important probably to bring up, that we have a loophole to take it back, and it's time to call in our bet.
Yeah. I
always thought it was a mistake of Carter to give it to him.
It was the dumbest political move, and God rest his soul. He was probably well-meaning, but it was stupid. He was being magnanimous. We're going to give you the Panama Canal, which we lost 35,000 people building. 35,000 people died making it, but we're giving it for $1.
Did he have the foresight when he was president back in the late 70s, to see the importance today? It was important all along, but to see the military significance of it.
He should have, Bill.
He should have.
Yeah.
He was a former, in the Navy.
Yes. He should have seen it. It was obvious. Think about it.
So was he pushed into it?
I don't know, Bill. That's a good question. No one asked those questions, Maybe they consider it too sensitive. What it does, the Panama Canal cuts about 5 or 6 days or a week of travel. Maybe more sometimes. But you don't have to sail around the continent, the continent of South America. You can just cut the corner. That's what it was built for. And a lot of engineering technology, really good engineering technology, went into making it, because it's not straight across. So they had to have locks and dams to raise the water up so the ships could travel.
The elevation changes,
Yeah, and again, they had malaria, Bill. They lost a lot of good people building that.
Well,
it's a shame that I think I could be wrong, but I think actually at one point before us, I think France was going to make the Panama Canal, and they just didn't have the engineering capability to do it. They tried.
Probably the capability and the money, because there was so much money invested in
Yes.
that. But the payoff is great. My wonder is with the advancement of technology. All right. And, one thing that we have is command of are the skies. So do Russia and so do China. But, we make planes bigger and bigger and bigger. And, of course, now there's the drone type things, and there's talk of, even more futuristic ships. But could there be some kind of cargo vessel that is futuristic that could take off, fly over the land to, in other words, it makes that thing a moot point to where you don't need it, and it would be best to seal it up?
That's a good question. I think there's a lot of people who will tell you that they believe that there are underground highway systems that have already been built for our national security that are top secret, and they probably go coast to coast right now. They probably have ways of, maybe it's a railroad system. Maybe there's an underground railroad system that would bring cargo from one end of the country to the other.
Whatever's underground, you probably can't track like you can something on the ocean or in the sky.
Yep. I wanted to, we were talking about the fires and terrorism in LA.
There's a lot to talk about. Yeah, okay.
We have so much to talk about. Plus, I promised to play today the interview with Dr. What was his name? Dr. Stephen Greer. I had to think about that for a second. He was on Finity on Newsmax Friday night. Really interesting interview. It's about 9.5 minutes long. We are going to play it, so bear with us. This article reads, "No one is safe from criminals in California, not even the U.S. military." Earlier this week, meaning last week, police reported that 3 Humvees and other military equipment was stolen from an Army Reserve Center in Tustin. It's pronounced Tustin, right? Tustin, California. Tustin. It could be Tustin, but I think it's Tustin. Anyway, listen to what they lost. The other things, right? We talk about the 3 Humvees gone, but it says the following.
What they have in them?
Yeah, listen, the following are confirmed missing: 3 Humvees, 1 armored, with the admin numbers. Now you put the admin numbers down of the cars. 8 machine gun vehicle mounts. That's kind of nice. 7 freestanding machine gun tripods.
Yeah. Medical
equipment. 40 pairs of binoculars, and 18 bayonets. Those are the other things. What do you need machine gun stands for? Machine guns, right? They weren't stolen by some rowdy kids looking to have a good time. That says to me, that screams terrorism. I do think the fires were set. Somebody out there must have, we don't need bombs. We don't need to have high explosives. All we need is a torch and some good winds, and we can wreak havoc in California. And that's
$9.99. You can buy a nice little pocket butane torch so you can go out and set a tree on fire.
Yeah,
and walk around, and no one will know that you got it in your pocket. You can go, and I'm not tipping the hat of anything that's. You shouldn't say that because that'll give somebody an idea. You see it in ads, and there's people out there that go, this could be used for nefarious things.
Well,
I don't care. Can we make money out of it?
Well, start your campfire with it. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. Justine Bateman, the actress.
Yes.
She, I don't know that she lost a house, but she's from that area. I think she lost a family house there. And she was ticked off on this interview. Listen.
I'm pretty pissed, and I think a lot of people in Los Angeles are pissed. If you are going to run a city or run a state, you have to take care of the basics, and that's make sure that your fire and your police department are well funded. Make sure that you have not only you have plans if there are emergencies in your area, you've rehearsed them, but also you have plans to mitigate the problems that you know are going to happen in that area. And for us, it's fire, earthquake, rain, and consequent mudslides. And if you're not doing everything you can to take care of those problems if they arise, then get out.
That's Justine Bateman.
Now, she mentioned something there. I have a liberal friend in the media that was going, oh, I could have predicted this. As a matter of fact, I have, and the next thing I'm going to predict are mudslides, which she mentions that. And, of course, with all the grounds devastated and the torrential rains are coming next, there's nothing to stop it. There's going to be, so California's, this is the beginning of the nightmare.
For those of you who listen in other parts of the country and don't pay a lot of attention to California, like a lot of us do, we know where it is. We don't.
I grew up there, so I know.
But the thing is, a lot of people don't realize that what happened in California is not unusual. They have a fire season every year. They have winds every year. They should have planned for all of this to happen long ago.
There's beach erosion. I mean, there's sinkage out there. All of that. California's not getting bigger; it's getting smaller. And the planet is a living, growing, moving thing. It changes constantly. The very ground that you're standing on out there is changing beneath your feet as I speak. And it's a living planet. It's going to change. It's going to evolve. And we didn't know this maybe 500 years ago, but we know it now, and we have to sit there and plan ahead. You can follow clues of history and see where it's going.
It doesn't take a brain surgeon, seriously. And this is why I call Newsom and Bass and the other Democratic politicians the screaming far left. They were always calling us the far right, so let's call them what they are, the screaming far left, right? It doesn't take a brain surgeon to know how dangerous things like undergrowth is in a forest, in a dry forest, especially one that's prone to lightning strikes and things like that. Campers who don't put their fires out properly. Things like, a lot of campers, they'll mess up the coal, put the flame down, and then they'll leave, and there are embers that are burning. They don't pay a lot of attention. They've been drinking all night or something.
Having a beer and peeing on it's not the answer either.
It doesn't put it out.
It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
Not from personal experience, but it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. But it shouldn't be a surprise that there are areas in California that are ripe for this. Actually, most of California is ripe for this. You go to Northern California, they have rich forests, and they're in danger too because they're not cleaning the undergrowth there either.
The hypocrisy of they said, no, we don't want to mess with nature, but yet if you have a house in the city and you don't take care of your yard and, you don't water it, you don't mow it, and it's just an eyesore, you're going to hear from City Hall, hey, clean up your yard, or you know what? And then all of a sudden there's a lien in your house or something. They'll just take the property and still bill you and tax you, they'll fine you for it. So you have to keep your yards up. But the state doesn't have to keep its forest.
They would give you the left would give you heck for using a lawn tractor to mow your lawn because you're using fossil fuel, burning gas. Oh my God!
Well, I think we're 2025. I think you're not supposed to have those now.
Unbelievable. They want you to go back to 1900. I have my grandfather's push. It's a terrific little machine. It's a push lawnmower. That it's like the old-fashioned lawnmowers, no engine. You push it, and the wheels would spin the blade.
But Jim, you got a problem with your property there. You don't want to cut the grass, even though you have to, because there's an indigenous little ant that lives only in your front lawn. You might hurt it.
Well, actually, at my age, I would probably say, well, fine, I won't mow. I have a reason not to mow the lawn now. Good, that sounds fun.
There you go. Let that little ant thrive.
Let it flourish. Exactly. So, we have a situation now. I do think that there's terrorism involved. I think it's amazing that the LAPD would just rush to say, we're not arresting him. We couldn't find any definitive proof. Oh, no, that blowtorch in his hand and the fact that there were videos of him setting the fires, that was not definitive proof because After all, he is an illegal. They are bending over backwards. These criminals, these doofuses who are running government in California, they're bending over backwards to appease these illegals. And they're going to take that guy's going to leave. Thank you very much. He'll take his coat and he'll leave. And a day or two later, you'll catch him lighting another fire up the hill.
He'll keep going. Well, I guess the old fire doesn't count anymore because they let him go. There's nothing there to prove.
Exactly right.
Hey,
Hey,
he can go and do it again. If there's nothing to prove, well, I got to let him go again. How many times are you going to let this guy go? Catch and release.
unbelievable. You have to shake your head. The stupidity. In the meantime, all this devastation. And by the way, Bill, I mean, if we give them several $1 billion to rebuild in California,
$150 billion plus now.
Bill, can we expect that area will be brought back to some normalcy in any time soon? I mean, if they cleared the property and put some topsoil down and plant their lawns and maybe move in some trees in their front yard, it's still going to take a while for it to start to look natural again, no matter what they do. Am I right?
Well, you got to watch what they do with the money, too, because Newsom was, he was on board for all these immigrants to come into California and be given citizenship. Are we going to be taking some of this $150 billion and say, well, ma'am, you didn't pay your dues on this or that, so, yeah, the house burned down, it's not worth anything, so we don't have to give you anything. We're just going to go ahead and eminent domain your property and give it to these illegals and give them money to build on it, and they're the new citizens. Good luck with your future life.
You're going to make my blood boil. No, I think that I wouldn't put it past the left to do something like that. See, a lot of people who lost their property, they may have had it for generations. So they may have actually built the house for $3,000 in 1890 or 1900.
That might be what you get total, but you know what?
That's right. They may turn around and say, well, here's $10,000,
Okay, now, taxes will be coming due here. It's the tax season, right? My property just burned to the ground. Do I owe the taxes on the assessed value of what it was or what it is?
Don't look at me. I'm not going to even answer that. Probably for the most recent taxes, it'll be for what it was. Because it was for what you lived in, not for what you're going to live in. Because for what you're going to live in is not there anymore.
And your job is not there anymore. Your domain is not there anymore. But you're going to be on the hook for those taxes. Yeah, see, I just see a land grab going on here.
Bill, the other thing I heard in that interview, that tape we played a little while ago, the guy who was watching the fires being set, he didn't say that man is. He says those men, those
there
people.
were more than one.
Yeah, they only got one guy.
And, the city councilman, I forget his name, that was in charge of saying, we got fires breaking out, let's get stuff out there. He didn't respond. He let that baby burn.
I think he waited, 6 hours or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'll tell you what. You take the northeast corner of your house and go take a little torch and light it on fire and wait 6 hours and see how much house you got left.
That's true. It's true. Hey, I promised to play this before we end the show today. It's an interesting cut. Those drones that people were seeing, those objects, the flying objects in New Jersey, they're still there. As a matter of fact, I watched a really good program. It was on YouTube. There was a TV show that was done on Discovery for about 3 seasons called Destination Fear. And what it was 4 friends, young people in their early 20s, very creative people, would go into these, abandoned asylums and stuff like that, and they'd spend the night, and you'd follow their escapades, and they had set up their cameras, and it was always very interesting. After 3 years, I don't know why Destination Fear was dropped, because it had a good following, but I guess Discovery figured that we'll move on to something else. But the young people who made the program, and they did make their own program, they took it and they said, well, we're going to continue doing it, but we'll call it Project Fear, and we're going to put it on YouTube. Well, they're getting millions of people watching them on YouTube. They have a strong following. Well, the young guy who's like the producer, his name is Dakota Layden. He is obviously like us. He's interested in these flying objects in New Jersey. So the week before last, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, he grabbed his equipment and a friend, another guy who works on the show, and they went out to New Jersey, and they spent about 3 or 4 days, all night long, looking at stuff and see, and they saw some stuff. They saw, on these random nights, they saw some flying objects that they couldn't explain. And he went into the library of video on YouTube, and he found different people who've uploaded their videos of these flying objects that you never see. Some of them go back to 2014 in New Jersey. These aren't brand spanking new. It's just that they just kind of discovered it. The media just kind of, we have flying objects in New Jersey? So it's a very interesting, by the way, if you want to go see this video, it's about an hour and a half long, and it's on a site called Project Fear. Project Fear. It's on YouTube channel, and you can see it for yourself. It's worth the watch. And it's free, too, by the way. But anyway, Dr. Stephen Greer is somebody who has a lot to say about UFOs. He's been studying the subject for years, and he's become an expert in it, and he's a real doctor, folks. This is not like a voodoo witch doctor. This is a guy who I believe he was an emergency room doctor, and he's a smart guy, but he's kind of specialized in his private life in this UFO area. What do they call him? A ufologist. And he says that this week that we're entering right now, this week, something very important is going to happen, and we're all going to learn. It's about a 9-minute long interview from Finnerty on Newsmax. Listen.
Dr. Stephen Greer is back with us. He's the founder of the Disclosure Project. Dr. Greer has been consistent with us for weeks that there is a disclosure coming before the presidential inauguration, which now leaves us with 10 days. Dr. Greer, it's great to have you back. This is where we are right now. A flight crew on a commercial airplane recorded this large orb in the skies while they were at 17,000 feet. And now people, we mentioned this a week ago, are reportedly getting sick all over the world from this granular, mysterious fog that's being seen all over the place. Right. Does this disclosure happen next week? And if it does, how does it happen? When it starts happening, how will we know?
Well, it'll be all over the news. It's good to see you again. I just heard an hour ago from the, we call the NOC, he's a non-official cover aerospace intelligence community, a senior operator from one of the key black sites, 2 black sites out in the western United States. And they are preparing to do this next week. I don't have an exact date. They intend to not only provide their testimony of operations, he's been there almost 30 years, but also the evidence and other details. Now, he's been involved in 2 things. One is the testing and the surveillance of the man-made UAPs that have been manufactured out of the Lockheed Skunk Works and Northrop Grumman complexes out in the high desert. Okay. The other is the targeting of non-human craft. Some would say extraterrestrial, some say alien. The words they're using now is NHI, non-human intelligence, and the downing of those objects. So he's been intimately involved. I've been at his facility, and that is on track. Now, keep in mind, so much of what is being seen now is sort of a decoy false flag operation, sort of trying to intercept what he's going to be doing and what we've been doing for some time.
But there's no way, Dr. Greer, we've talked about there's no way all of this can be a false flag. It's all over the world now. It's being seen over cities in India, cities in South Korea. It's just the coordination that would be required to do something like that. Mm-hmm. I think it's beyond the scope unless there is something going on that I'm completely unaware of, which of course is a possibility. 3 questions. These are just yes or no's. Are aliens already here? Yes or no?
Oh, sure. I mean, there have been non-human extraterrestrial civilizations that have been observing the planet for thousands of years, and it increased remarkably once we detonated the first atomic bomb. There's no question about that. In fact, this particular team coming forward have dealt with the remains and on occasion living non-human life forms that have been downed, and some are still in captivity in subterranean facilities or stiffs.
To me, Dr. Greer, feels like, and you answered my other question, it feels like right now the public worldwide is being primed for something. You know, for the last 50 years, we've had movies about aliens. Going back to Roswell, we've had reports of flying saucers. And now people, not just in northern New Jersey, are seeing strange things in the sky. It seems like these beings are technologically far superior than we are, and they're doing this with incredible patience, priming a worldwide audience for something else. Do you agree with that? And then what are they priming us for?
Well, it's very complex, but the bottom line it is they've been waiting for humans to acknowledge their presence so that they don't have to force into it, which could look aggressive, because they're not aggressive, obviously.
Force into it like land in Times Square, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to do something like that. They're going to do a sort of an acculturation and desensitization operation.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Which means it's gradual.
Okay.
And it has been over the decades. Now, the big problem here are rogue military-industrial complex operations that have reverse engineered these extremely advanced technologies and can use them in staged event. And this is where everyone, when I say everyone, I mean everyone from the generals that I have briefed at the Pentagon to director of the CIA, past, not incoming. And that is that they greatly underestimate what has been developed. I mean, Ben Rich, before he died, who was head of Lockheed Skunk Works, said, anything you can imagine, as you've seen on Star Trek, we've already figured out, and it's out there in the desert. He says, not Area 51.
Okay.
He's talking about
how far ahead of us? And the last time you were on, you said there are multiple different alien societies from different planets visiting us.
Right.
How far ahead of us are they?
At least 60 to 70 that have been documented.
60 to 70
that I know about. Yes.
And how far? Where are they technologically? 1,000 years ahead? 1,000,000 years ahead?
They'd be in the many thousands to millions of years more advanced, and there are different civilizations at different development, both socially, spiritually, and technologically. None of them are hostile, obviously, with the kind of technology they have. They would have, as Congressman Burchett once said, it would be a charcoal briquette floating through space if they were overtly hostile. But they appear to be very concerned with our own hostility and the development of very powerful
If
weapons.
they landed, Dr. Greer, could they communicate with us?
I'm sure they can. I mean, I don't know how that would exactly take place. It may be some strange. I mean, remember, one of the things that Elon Musk is working on at Neuralink is an interface between thought and machine.
Right.
Now, I will tell you, this is a big secret that's going to come out very quickly with this team, because they've dealt with this, is that there is a direct interface between technology and consciousness and thought that's been developed by these advanced civilizations. This is not Ma Bell we're talking about here in terms of communication. So it's that's just a prelude. We don't have time to unpack that, but I know about that in a very specialized fashion.
Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon, Sea of Tranquility, 1969, Apollo 11. Over the decades, he hinted at several things. One, that aliens are living right now in bases on Antarctica and under the ocean. His words, not mine. The second, that the moon landing in 1969 never actually happened. The third, and most interesting, I think, is that on the dark side of the moon doesn't spin like the Earth. When they orbited in Apollo 11, they photographed and saw with their own eyes structures that clearly were built by somebody. Can you confirm or deny any of that?
I can absolutely confirm we did go to the moon. But when we went, we weren't alone, and that was known prior to the 1969 moon landing. And I'll tell you why. If you go to our Disclosure Project Intelligence Archive, dpiarchive.com, you will see, and it's free to go there, you'll see the testimony of Carl Wolf, who in 1968 was at a National Security Agency relay station at Langley Air Force Base.
Carl Wolf was killed, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was killed. I mean, we've had a lot of losses.
Run over by a truck or something like that? Mysteriously?
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Brewer, we're just very tight on time. I have one. Go ahead.
I was mysteriously almost killed about 14 months ago. But my point is that these, when they did the lunar orbiter, where they were mapping, where they were going to planning to land, there were these structures that were seen, and he came forward with that 25 years ago at the first Disclosure Project press conference in May of 2001. So we've known about this for some time, and he actually saw the images, the early digital photographs, and what have you of those structures. So
it's just unbelievable.
And this is all going to eventually come out.
Let me just ask you. We're so tight on time, Dr. Greer. The Las Vegas suicide bomber. So he wrote this manifesto that they're trying to suppress, like they do with everything else. But it sort of ebbs into this world. Is there any connection just between what is going to happen next week and what we saw in Las Vegas on New Year's Day?
Correct. There is. And again, that was sort of a psychological warfare operation by someone in Special Forces giving a heads up on this. It's not a coincidence it happened at the Trump building and that it was in a cyber truck. He refers to gravitic propulsion systems. And that's what's going to be coming out because we have mastered gravity control for decades. And this is why many of the craft people see that they think is alien.
And he wrote about that in the manifesto. Just a final question.
He did.
Following whatever happens next week, if it does happen, does Donald Trump need to appoint somebody like yourself as an alien czar or a UAP czar?
Well, this has been suggested. We'll see. I mean, of course, the president, you serve at his pleasure. As it is, I've been an unofficial advisor for many administrations on this. And now that this is going to be coming to a head, we'll see if he wants someone to do that. If I would certainly consider it if I was asked, but that has not happened.
Dr. Greer, I'm interested to see what's really going on out there. We've got 10 days before the inauguration.
As soon as this drops and we get this from this team, we'll send it over to you.
All right. Dr. Stephen Greer, have a great weekend. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it as always.
Okay, that was Dr. Stephen Greer, ufologist, a guy who says something's going to be announced, and it's going to be this week. I thought that was fascinating.
And 7 days to go before the inauguration. Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin that was supposed to take off today has been canceled. Doesn't Elon Musk have another big heavy that's going up?
It is. I believe it's going up tomorrow, I believe.
Tomorrow?
Which
is interesting. But I have an alternate idea too. Maybe we've been groomed for a long time. I know skunk works exist. I've been into all of that. But what if we've talked about a deep dark state, and instead of saying it's aliens, and I'm sure they have visited, but we got the technology, and all of a sudden there is a new chief in town that's going to rear its head.
Well, I think that the deep state, in my opinion, is on its heels right now, and they know it. I don't think they're in the position of power that would indicate that. I think that I heard somebody say, if you are part of the deep state and you haven't been a pedophile or human trafficker, stop now. Get out of it now. That was and then that person said, if you have been trafficking and you have been a pedophile, then expect the capital punishment. Expect that you will be terminated. And that's kind of the position that I think the deep state feels that it's in right now with this current administration, that there are going to be some consequences now to their illicit deeds.
But as the deep state we know, the deep state that really is in charge. In other words, there's levels of management, levels of ownership, levels of governments, and we'll go to the deep state. And who we think are the people, maybe there's something further down, deeper, bigger that controls them.
Well, I mean, ultimately, I think the devil controls the deep state, to be honest with you. And that's about as deep as you probably can get.
Well, the devil be damned. And we may be too, if he rears his head. And
I mean, if they're lighting the fires, for example, in Southern California, and people say, my God, this is new.
It's burning for a reason.
Wait
it's
a
not
second.
just because of the weather.
Well, let's stop for a second and let's put some pieces together. About a year and a half ago, about a year and a half ago, in East Palestine, Ohio, for no good reason, a massive train decided to derail and completely destroy a little town called East Palestine, Ohio, and our government at the time, run by Joe Robinette Biden, did absolutely positively nothing. Oh, they'll tell you they sent some people out to clean up the water, but you still can go there today, and it still has the chemicals in that water. You can see it just by, messing with the bottom of the streams. You'll see these little puddles of chemical pop up. It's still there. All right. They haven't done that town any service at all. I mean, they talk about Trump. Trump at least went up there with clean water and gave it out by the caseloads to the people so that they would have something to drink for a while. But, there's a little town, East Palestine, Ohio, destroyed. Then you look, wait a second, the bridge in Baltimore. Do we really know what the hell happened with that bridge? I mean, all of a sudden it was there, and then it was hit by a barge.
Oh, we're going to rebuild it. Has any rebuilding gone on?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I do not know. I know that the Empire State Building took about a year to build, okay? And yet I think they were talking about 4 or 5 years to put a new bridge in. I mean, can't they take the footings from the old bridge and use them? I mean, the footings weren't broken, the concrete footings. Can't they just rebuild a bridge and get it up there? Back in the Civil War days, they would cross a river and then use pontoons, and you do it in an afternoon.
I don't know that I would trust the footings because, you got the steel beam going down into the water, into the concrete that's buried below the floor of the sea there. But either way, when you got that, it vibrates down that steel. It could have done damage that you just don't know.
Maybe that's a good point, Bill. Maybe you can't trust it, but you can probably use the same location as the old footing and get a new footing and put pretty darn fast.
Oh, I'm sure you could, you know, but you got to get the old one out of there, get it cleaned out, and then, I'm sure put a new casing down.
Well, that's
there,
what I'm sure. And this is what we're hearing probably from these guys in federal government who say it's going to take 4 or 5 years to get a new bridge.
I don't think it takes that long. I think, look, Odell put out the fires from Iraq, when they scorched the earth. Well, that'll take decades, and did it in a week.
Okay, but that could have, by the way, been done by a terrorist act, but they never, ever addressed that or even considered that. It was just an accident. The barge hit it. Move on. Nothing to see here. Okay, then we have over 100 food processing plants in the United States in the last 2.5 years have, for no really good reason, burned to the ground. Chicken farms and all these other processing plants gone. Food, which is the mainstay of how we exist, right? They're gone. So, and nobody explains it or even addresses it. You just are expected to.
Let me ask you this. Let's just talk about in Palisades, L.A., and the county there, and Hollywood. What industries are there? Is there anything crucial, vital to, because California is actually the number one state for, output, productive output. What is headquartered there? What is there? What is?
You tell me.
I don't know.
I can think right off the bat. You think of Hollywood, you think of motion pictures, but
there's more than that.
But Mel Gibson said, "Hey, not so much anymore because most of them are being shot all around the world. They're not really, so the production keeps getting done. Maybe they have offices and stuff and sound stages, but for the most part, a lot of the big important movies are being done on location nowadays."
Yeah, but there's something there. I mean, obviously, but it's scorched to the ground, and you got to wonder about all of that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would think, in all honesty, that there are military bases, probably very private military bases, that have been affected by this, at least. Maybe not destroyed, but affected by it.
It's almost like,
they won't tell you.
You couldn't sit there and just say, if they had other ideas for that area, you couldn't just sit there and say, look, folks, you got to move, got to give up your stuff, let's just go. A disaster has to hit. They have this. It's fires and winds are an ongoing thing, but not to this level.
What I'm saying is that there are a lot of things other than the fires. I mean, you can, if you if you want to, you probably can connect dots to tragedies. I say tragedies. You lose 100 food processing plants. That's a tragedy. You get a fire in East Palestine, Ohio. That's a tragedy. Not fire, derailment. You get a bridge that's all of a sudden destroyed in less than a minute in Baltimore, and that's a tragedy. By the way, it's one of our major shipping harbors. I'm sure it's affected. And I'm sure I'm missing stuff. The hurricanes, that's an act of nature, or is it?
Silicon Valley is up towards San Fran. But where I was going with the Silicon Valley up towards San Fran, what do we know what do we do or not know that's there when we talk about digitizing things? The reason I say that, there was a lady that was going for she wanted her jewelry on the property, and you're going, hey, why are you looking around here for? Why, I have a safe here, and she had to show her identity. But I was reading a story about in the UK where somebody, now this is old school, it used to be that you kept the records of your digital coin, your Bitcoin. Somebody was cleaning out something. Somebody threw away an old computer, had an old hard drive on it, which had $750 million worth of Bitcoin currency on it, the registry of it, and it went to a landfill. And then this happened in the UK, and the government's out there and said, it's not your property that it's on, it's ours now, because they're estimating the Bitcoin, if they can find the drive, is worth billions of dollars. Is there any paper or anything like that? Is there deeds, whatever important paperwork that's stored in L.A. law firms, homes, digital archives out there that's going to be lost?
Oh, sure. And that's why they've been arresting. If you notice, they don't talk about it a lot, but they've arrested people who are looting the rubble. They're going through looking for safes, things like that, because, a lot of people put their safes in the floors. And they've been finding people who've been trying to get in, and they call them scavengers, but they could have another reason for doing that, for all we know. I guess the point I was trying to make, Bill, was that it may not just be one thing that we're looking at. We may be looking at a lot of different things that are actually the Maui fire. No one ever.
That's a dot that we got to connect.
No one ever told us what really started that. It just sort of happened, and the whole city was gone. The town was gone.
Mm-hmm. That's still a mystery of what's going on there.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm saying is that maybe they're all connected. That's all. Maybe they're all connected. I'm not trying to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, well, good chance it's a duck, Well,
let's say another West Coast city went by a natural disaster. Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Could happen.
Sure.
Or Oregon, Portland, could happen. There's a big volcano, undersea volcano. We talked about it. Scientists are watching it. They're saying it's going to blow. It's imminent. It is 4,000 feet down, but 1,400 feet tall. It's a big ass
Well, they're talking about
volcano.
Yellowstone. They say if Yellowstone goes, it's going to be a climate changer for the whole globe.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that's on the verge of going. That's what they're saying. I mean, I don't know.
Well, all along that West Coast, there's a ring of fire. So if that thing over off Oregon is ready to go, I mean, what next? You're going to get a big massive earthquake up and down the San Andreas Fault.
Hey,
could you trigger an earthquake? I mean, could you trigger a fault?
I would imagine with the right amount of explosives, you can do just about anything nowadays. I mean, there are things we have been left in the dark so much by our government. It's amazing. And I'm not going to go into it. It's a whole other show if we do that. But we've been told a lie. I mean, going back to like 1947 with Roswell, there was something more that happened in Roswell than weather balloons. As a matter of fact, if you know the first day that it happened, they came right out and said they were alien spacecraft. And then the government said, no, you can't say that. You have to retract it, call them weather balloons. And there's a picture of the guy who the day before had said they were aliens. The next day, this Major's holding a weather balloon, and he has a wry smile on his face, like, yeah, they're weather balloons. And you know that he's not really happy being there, trying to sell a lie. But, they went right out there, the government did, and picked up all the pieces And next thing you know, it was gone. They say they took them out to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, where a lot of that stuff is stored. I don't know how true that is, but it. All I know is that for the longest time, they told us there were no unidentified flying objects. And then just, last year, they started admitting, okay, well, there are some unidentified flying objects. We call them something different now. We call them unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP or something like that.
Yeah, UAPs.
Yeah, UAPs. But we don't want to call them UFOs. That's old and scary. Let's call them UAPs.
And phenomena is not scary.
That's right.
The boogeyman is a phenomena. Is he scary?
The boogeyman?
Yeah. I'm your boogeyman.
Old disc jockey. He breaks out into a song. Anyway.
Somebody had to.
That's going to do it for us. One more thing before we leave. Please, if you get a moment, visit our online store. It's called rightsideshop.com. rightsideshop.com. You will find coffee, our delicious Jim and Bill's Right Side coffee. Bill's sipping it right now. We also have mugs and T-shirts and sweatshirts and baseball caps, and it's a neat little place. It'll help us to grow our show in the coming year. It's a relatively new store. We would appreciate you visiting Right Side Shop. Very easy to remember, rightsideshop.com. And if you get a moment to buy something, it's for a good cause. It helps us grow the program. We want to go from $4 million a week to $40 million a week to $400 million a week. I mean, we just want to become the kings of the podcast universe. No, we just want to get a bigger audience. That's all. So anyway, anything you want to say before? I'm sorry. Juan and Jose.
Juan.
Oh,
yeah.
They're over there. They look like they're going to
cry.
They look like they're going to cry. Yeah, who's going to say that? Guys, come on over. Sing the jingle.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Wonderful job. Very good. Now they're much happier now. They had their 2 opportunities today. Now they can go relax, take a little siesta. Anyway, that's it for me, Bill. It's been an interesting program. Talked about a lot of different things. It's going to be, I think we're going to have some, it's not over, folks. The fires continue this week. And of course, you heard Stephen Greer. We're going to hear something in the news. You have something you want to add to?
Well, I was just going to say, when you talk about all the dots connecting, like the fires and everything, and we think it might have been set and there's an agenda, write down everything you heard and then try to maybe prioritize it in a certain thing. Like I mentioned that Gavin Newsom said, well, we're going to have to do the Marshall Plan like that was used in World War II to rebuild in Europe. Well, we're going to have to do that in L.A. And he goes, we're getting ready for L.A. 2.0. There's a theory out there that the fires were set to build an AI-controlled smart L.A. 2028. It's a 3-year project.
Well, where'd you hear this, Bill? That's interesting.
Actually, it is. It's in the Gateway, and it's just in time for the 2028 Olympics. So
it's also in time for the 2028 elections too.
Yes.
And wouldn't Gavin? Wouldn't it be interesting?
President.
Yeah, and Gavin can say, "Look, I rebuilt California in this modernistic society."
So this could all be just the political speculation here. But this could all be, well, we screwed it up this time. We didn't steal it. Here's what we're going to do. Just level the biggest city we got or the second biggest city we got, and we'll rebuild it. It was nature. Nature did it.
We're going to be talking about this all week, folks. All week long.
Zuckerberg in trouble on the Rogan show over COVID-19 and his things that he said with Gavin. So, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff.
Well, look, we'll probably talk about it tomorrow. Until then, my friends, I'm done. Do you want to take us out of here?
The only thing I was going to say, if the aliens come down and say, look, we got paradise in space, do you want to go or not? I'd have to think about it, but looking at this crap that's going on in the world, it might be easy to go, hasta la vista, baby! We're out of here!
This is CRN America.